In setting up our discussion of how businesses are taxed, we spoke about different entity structures. The second piece of setting up that discussion is differentiate between two types of deal structures. So today we're going to talk about asset transactions and stock transactions. Let's say for a moment that I own a distribution company that sells iPhone cases. I can name my corporate entity whatever I want. Since I have a big wrestling background, let's call my company Fireman's Carry Corporation. I would then set up a fictitious business name, or DBA, that allows me to conduct business under a name that's more appropriate and descriptive. So in this example, we'll call it Protect All Casings. If a deal is structured as a stock transaction, the buyer acquires the entity Fireman's Carry Corporation. That means that a buyer is not only getting all of the assets of the entity, but all of the liabilities. Here's the catch. We might think of liabilities as those that show up on the balance sheet. But the buyer is also getting any unknown, or what are called contingent liabilities. These are liabilities that pop up in the future for actions occurring in the past prior to the close of the deal. For example, taxing authorities like the IRS, EDD, or CDTFA might indicate that the business hasn't been reporting taxes accurately, and there's a large outstanding balance with penalties and interest due. Or maybe an employee was terminated prior to the close and comebacks for a wrongful termination lawsuit after the close. The buyer owns the same business entity, so these are contingent liabilities that would transfer in a deal. Now, I'd be remiss not to mention that there are ways for attorneys to draft protections in these instances, but there are limitations, and we're going to discuss this as a topic in a future video. Let's switch now to an asset transaction. In this situation, a buyer would set up a new entity or use their existing entity to acquire the assets of Fireman's Carry Corporation. The purchase agreement would explicitly state which assets the acquirer is buying, and this would generally include all operating assets that make the business a going concern, such that an outsider wouldn't even know the difference. Liabilities would typically not be included in this type of transaction unless otherwise stated. And of course, since the buyer has a new business entity, none of the contingent liabilities would transfer. I would still own Fireman's Carry Corporation, but it would effectively be a shell company. There are many reasons why a deal will be structured as an asset transaction versus a stock transaction, but we're going to cover those in a later discussion. See you soon.